The snow fell in heavy, silent sheets the night Elena Harper pushed open the heavy glass doors of Willow Creek General Hospital, her boots leaving wet tracks on the linoleum floor that stretched endlessly before her. It was February 13, 2026, Valentine's Eve, and in her gloved hand she clutched a single red rose, its stem wrapped in cheap green paper, petals already wilting from the brutal Punjab like cold that had swept across the Midwest unexpectedly early this year. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. She hadn't eaten. And she hadn't seen the man dying in room 412 in exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. Not since the night she'd packed a single suitcase, left the key on the kitchen counter next to the half-finished puzzle they'd been working on for months, and driven away without looking back. The hallways smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like trapped insects. Elena's heart hammered so violently she thought the nurses at the station might hear it. She paused outside the door, hand on the knob, breath fogging the small window. Through the glass she saw him, Alex Rivera, propped against pillows, eyes closed, face gaunt under the pale blue hospital gown. Machines blinked and hissed around him. A tube ran from his arm to a dripping bag. Another disappeared beneath the sheet. Cancer. Stage 4. Pancreatic. The words his sister Maria had choked out over the phone 2 weeks earlier still echoed in Elena's skull. She'd hung up, turned off her phone, buried herself in work emails and takeout containers in her tiny Chicago apartment. But the dreams wouldn't stop. Every night, Alex's voice, soft and laughing. "You're my forever, Elle. You know that, right?" She'd wake up gasping, reaching for someone who wasn't there. Tonight, something had snapped inside her. She'd bought the rose on impulse from the last open florist on the edge of town, the same florist where Alex had once bought her a dozen sunflowers, just because it was Tuesday. She'd driven 4 hours straight, snow whipping the windshield, radio off, only the sound of her own ragged breathing for company. She pushed the door open. The click echoed like a gunshot. Alex's eyes fluttered open. For a long moment he simply stared, pupils dilated from morphine, confusion warring with something brighter, something painful. "Elena?" The word scraped out of his throat, barely audible. She couldn't speak. Tears burned hot trails down her cheeks. She stepped closer, rose trembling in her fist. "I'm here," she managed. "I'm finally here." His cracked lips curved in the ghost of a smile. "You brought a rose, on Valentine's Eve. God, that's you." She set the flower on the bedside table, next to a plastic water cup and a crumpled tissue. Her fingers lingered on the stem as if letting go would make everything disappear again. "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. I had to see you." He reached out slowly, too slowly. And his fingertips brushed hers. The contact sent electricity through her veins, sharp and alive after years of numbness. "Sit," he said, "before you fall over." She sank into the chair beside the bed, knees weak. For several minutes they simply looked at each other, cataloging the changes time and illness had carved. His once thick dark hair was gone. A faint stubble shadowed his hollow cheeks. The laugh lines around his eyes had deepened into grooves of pain. But the eyes themselves, warm brown, always a little mischievous, were still his. "You look tired," he said softly. "So do you." A weak chuckle escaped him, turning into a cough. She reached for the water cup instinctively. He shook his head. "Tell me why you came," he said when he could speak again. "After all this time." The question hung between them like smoke. Elena swallowed. "Because I was wrong. About everything." His gaze never left her face. "That's a big statement." "I know." Silence stretched. Outside, wind howled against the window. 3 years, he murmured. "I waited for a call. A text. Anything. Then I stopped waiting. Figured you'd moved on. Found someone who didn't hold you back." The words sliced her open. "There was no one else, Alex. There never could be." He closed his eyes for a moment. "Then why did you leave?" The question she'd asked herself 1,000 nights. "Because I was terrified," she said, voice cracking. "Terrified that if I stayed, I'd resent you. That I'd wake up one day and hate the quiet life we had. That loving you would mean giving up the version of myself I thought I was supposed to become." He nodded slowly, as if he'd already known. "And did you become her? The big city Elena with the corner office and the view?" She laughed bitterly. "I got the office, the view, the title, and every night I came home to silence so loud it hurt." I kept your old hoodie in the closet. I'd wear it when no one was looking and pretend you were just in the next room." Tears slipped down his face now. He didn't wipe them away. "I kept your picture," he admitted. "The one from our trip to the lake. You're laughing, hair in your face, sun on your skin. Maria wanted to throw it out when I got sick. Said it was torture. I told her it was the only thing keeping me going some days." Elena reached for his hand. His skin was cold, paper thin. She wrapped both of hers around it, trying to pour warmth into him. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I thought leaving was mercy. I thought I was saving us both from a slow poison." "And now?" he asked. "Now I know I was the poison. I poisoned us by running." He squeezed her fingers with what little strength he had. "We both ran, Elle. You ran away. I ran inward. I let you go because I thought that's what love looked like, sacrifice. Turns out sacrifice without trust is just slow suicide." The truth landed heavy between them. They talked until the night nurse came to check vitals at 2 a.m. They talked about the small things first, the way he still hated olives, the way she still talked to plants like they could hear her. Then the bigger things. How he'd proposed to her once under a willow tree by the lake, ring in his pocket, words rehearsed for weeks, only for her to say, "Not yet," because she needed to figure herself out first. How she'd cried for days after leaving, parked on the side of the highway, convinced she'd destroyed the best thing she'd ever had. How he'd sat on their porch swing every evening for months, staring at the empty driveway, waiting for headlights that never came. By dawn, exhaustion pulled at them both. Elena curled up in the chair, head resting near his hip. His hand stayed in her hair, stroking gently even as his breathing grew labored. "I don't have much time left," he said quietly as morning light crept through the blinds. "Don't say that. It's true, and I need you to hear me. I forgive you, Elena. I forgave you the day you left. I just didn't know how to tell you." She lifted her head, eyes red and swollen. "I don't deserve that, maybe not, but love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing, and I choose to love you. Still, always." She broke then, great, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. He pulled her closer, weak arms wrapping around her as best he could. "I love you too," she choked out. "I never stopped. I just buried it so deep I forgot how to breathe sometimes." They stayed like that until the breakfast trays arrived. The next few days blurred into a fragile rhythm. Elena refused to leave. She slept in snatches, showered in the staff locker room, ate whatever Maria brought her. She read to him from the dog-eared paperbacks on his shelf, old mysteries they'd once argued over. She played his favorite playlists on her phone, soft acoustic songs that filled the room with memories. She told him stories about the city. The rooftop bars, the strangers who smiled on the L train, the way snow looked different against skyscrapers than against cornfields. And slowly, painfully, they rebuilt what had been broken. But the major conflict, the one that had always simmered beneath their love, rose again on the third night. They were talking about the future, or what little was left of it. "I wish we'd had more time," he said. "I wish I'd fought harder. Told you every day that you were enough, more than enough. That I didn't need you to be anything other than who you were." Elena stared at their joined hands. "I wish I'd believed you when you said it." A pause. "What if I'd stayed?" she asked suddenly. "What if I'd never left? Would we have been happy?" He thought for a long moment. "Maybe, for a while, but you would have wondered. You would have looked out the window at the road and felt trapped. And I would have seen it. And I would have hated myself for being the cage." Tears welled again. "So we were doomed either way?" "No," he said fiercely. "We were human. We were scared. But look at us now. We found each other again. That's not doom. That's destiny laughing at our plans." She leaned her forehead against his. "I hate that it took this to bring me back." "Me too. But I'm glad it did." Then came the first major cliffhanger. Late that night, as Elena dozed in the chair, alarms shattered the quiet. Monitors screamed. Nurses rushed in. Alex's body arched in pain. His oxygen saturation plummeted. Doctors barked orders. Elena was pushed back against the wall, helpless, watching the man she loved fight for every breath. Code blue. Room 412, someone shouted into the hallway. She slid to the floor, knees to chest, whispering over and over, "Don't go. Please don't go, not yet." 20 agonizing minutes later, the code ended. His heart stabilized, barely. The doctor approached her in the corridor, face grim. He's stable for now, but his organs are shutting down. It could be hours. It could be days. Prepare yourself. Elena nodded numbly. When they let her back in, Alex was awake, eyes glassy but searching for her. I thought that was it, he rasped. So did I. He lifted a trembling hand. She took it. Don't leave, he whispered. Even if I go, stay until the end. I promise. The next 48 hours became a vigil of small, sacred moments. She washed his face with a warm cloth. She fed him ice chips. She played voice memos from old friends who'd sent messages when Maria spread the word. She told him about the dreams she'd had, ones where they were old, gray-haired, sitting on a porch watching fireflies. He smiled at that. I like that version, he said, even if we only get it in dreams. On Valentine's Day morning, the 14th, she woke to silence. The monitors were quiet, too quiet. Panic clawed up her throat. She bolted upright. Alex lay still, eyes closed, chest barely rising. Alex? Her voice cracked. No response. She pressed the call button frantically. Nurses flooded in. A crash cart appeared. Someone pulled her away as they began compressions. No, 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 she screamed, fighting against the arms holding her back. His heart had stopped again. This was the second cliffhanger, the one that felt final. Elena was dragged into the hallway. Maria arrived, eyes swollen, and held her as she collapsed. Minutes stretched into eternity. Doctors shocked him once, twice. Nothing. Then, a beep. Another. A weak rhythm returned. He was back. When they finally let her in, he was conscious, barely. I heard you again, he whispered. Screaming my name. Pulling me back. She crawled onto the bed beside him, careful of wires, burying her face in his neck. I can't lose you. You won't. Not completely. They spent the rest of Valentine's Day in tender intimacy. No flowers, no chocolates, just them. She tucked the now withered rose behind his ear. He joked it made him look like a tragic poet. They exchanged vows in whispers. No priest, no witnesses, just promises carved into the air between heartbeats. I take you, Elena Harper, he said, voice fading but steady, in sickness and in health, for as long as we have left. I promise to love you fiercely, trust you completely, and let you go if destiny calls you elsewhere, but only if you promise to come back when you're ready. She laughed through tears. I take you, Alex Rivera, forever and always. I promise to stay, to fight, to choose you every single day, even the hard ones. And when the time comes, I'll carry you with me until we meet again. They kissed, slow, gentle, tasting of salt and morphine and unbreakable love. As night fell, his breathing grew shallower. Elena held him, singing the lullaby his mother used to sing, the one he'd hummed to her on bad days. Maria sat on the other side, holding his other hand. At 11:47 p.m., his chest rose one final time. Then stillness. Elena waited, listening for the impossible return. But the monitors flatlined, soft and final. She kissed his forehead. Thank you, she whispered. For every second. Maria sobbed quietly. Elena didn't cry then. Not yet. She stayed until they covered him with a sheet. She kissed his hand one last time. She took the rose, dried now, fragile, and tucked it into her coat pocket. Outside, snow had stopped. Stars pierced the black sky. In the weeks that followed, Elena didn't return to Chicago right away. She stayed in Willow Creek, in their old house that Maria had kept untouched. She slept in their bed. She finished the puzzle on the kitchen table, pieces that had waited 3 years for her hands. She walked by the lake every evening, watching the water remember their footprints. Grief came in waves, some days gentle, some days crushing. But woven through it was something new, peace, growth, the understanding that love wasn't measured in years but in depth. That destiny wasn't a straight path but a circle, sometimes painful, always returning. She started volunteering at the hospital, bringing roses to patients on Valentine's Eve. She wrote letters to Alex in a journal she kept by the bed. She laughed more easily. She cried without shame. She let people in. 1 year later, on February 14th, she returned to the florist. Bought one red rose. Walked to the lake bench where he'd once proposed. Placed the flower there. Thank you, she said to the wind, for teaching me how to stay, how to trust, how to love without fear. A breeze stirred the petals. She smiled. Somewhere, she felt him smile back. And in that quiet moment, she knew. Love like theirs didn't die. It simply changed shape, becoming the courage to live fully, the kindness to forgive, the hope that tomorrow could still hold light. Even after goodbye. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love, real love, is worth every risk, every tear, every second, then like the video and subscribe to the channel for more emotional love stories. Let these tales remind you. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the longest. They're the ones that change us forever. Heart.